treatment plant resiliency improvements.
Your Honor, I move to approve Resolution 2025-012.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item F, Ordinance 2025-01. Adding section 8.05.120 to the Walla Walla Municipal Code regarding downtown chalking cleanup requirements and taking such further action needed therewith. Mr. Donaldson, we'll turn the matter over to you. Thank you.
So I'll give a brief introduction, Your Honor. Courts have uniformly held that sidewalk chalking is a constitutionally protected form of expression. It's also been for at least 75 years now. Courts have also held repeatedly and consistently that cities, counties, governmental agencies can't regulate the content. There's not an exception for hate speech. So you just simply cannot, we cannot come up with a regulation here where we regulate the content of speech. That doesn't mean, however, that someone has a right to go and mark up a town repeatedly or consistently and leave it for somebody else to clean up and harass them when they do. So what this ordinance does is that it allows people still to use sidewalks to chalk messages. It doesn't restrict what people say. It does, however, require them to clean up after themselves. It also doesn't just apply to some people and not others. So the one thing that council should be aware of is you can't just regulate because there may be, a particular segment or particular people who have created this issue. You can't just regulate them. You adopt this regulation, it applies to everyone. So, the example that came to mind for me is that, the Domestic Violence Coalition had on a particular day gone out and done chalk outlines on city sidewalks. It's to raise awareness. This ordinance would also apply to those. So it doesn't just apply to bad chalk markings. It applies to good chalk markings. It applies to indifferent chalk markings. What the ordinance does is that if someone applies sidewalk chalk or some other substance downtown on a sidewalk, they have to clean it up by sundown. If they decide to write their chalk messages after dark, they have to clean it up by the sundown of the following day. If the person doesn't, it's a $500 fine for each location that they didn't clean up. And it's an additional $500 for every day that they don't clean up. The city has compelling reasons for adoption of this ordinance that are detailed in the staff report and the materials that have been submitted. I'm happy to answer questions about those if the council has any. I recommend and encourage passage of the ordinance, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. We will allow public comment. Before we do that, let me just thank Mr. Donaldson again, as I have, and other members of council. I know that this has been an issue with us for some time. We have had lots of public comment and may continue to have it. And Mr. Donaldson has done a considerable amount of research with respect to what could be done or can't be done under applicable law. And I thank you, Mr. Donaldson, on behalf of the entire council, the city, for the considerable effort that you have put forth and what you have presented for our consideration. Is there anyone here in attendance who would like to comment on this matter? If so, come up to the lectern, identify yourself, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff. My name is Dan Calzaretta, and I'm a resident of Walla Walla. I stand here tonight in support of this ordinance. For nearly 5 years, our city has been subjected to a almost daily barrage of chalk blight, mostly focused in downtown. This ordinance is a good first step to returning our downtown to its once beautiful and welcoming condition. But I also have 3 questions that I hope can get answered during your deliberations this evening. One is, will it be up to the police to identify chalking when it happens, identify the person chalking, and then return in the evening to make sure that the chalk is gone? 2, will other people be able to file a complaint, whether it's a resident, a city employee other than the police, a business person? And if so, who from the city will come by to make sure that that chalk has been erased per the ordinance? And third, what will be the actual mechanics of the enforcement of this ordinance? Will it be the police? Will it be someone from the city to make sure that the chalk gets erased? Because really, for this ordinance to be successful, the proof is going to be in the enforcement pudding, so to speak. Unless the city is diligent about enforcing this ordinance, the chalk blight will continue. So with that, I think this is a good first step in dealing with the chalk issue. I did read all of the affidavit materials that were supplied with this ordinance. And part of that detailed business effort, time, and money to clean up chalk. It also talked about the city costs over the last 3 years to clean up the chalk. But there was one group that was left out that I think should be part of the public record. And that is a group of citizens who came together starting in the spring of last year and cleaned this chalk on an almost daily basis. A conservative estimate of the time that they spent every week was 120 hours cleaning up chalk. And I think it deserves to be part of the city record that effort was taking place. I appreciate that this is before you. I appreciate you considering it, and I urge all of you to vote yes on this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to comment on this proposed ordinance? Yes.
Just real quickly, Randall Sampson, I'm a resident of Walla Walla. Mr. Mayor and council, thank you, and staff. I want to especially thank staff, as you did, for their efforts in this regard. I appreciate the city taking the issue seriously. And while there may be some quibbling that we could all do with the final product, and there may be some wiggle room that only time will tell if it's the perfect fit for this problem, I think it's a good, solid place to begin addressing what a lot of citizens, I think, feel is a serious issue. Well, and while it may be anecdotal, you cannot go out and spend any time washing the blight, the graffiti, the litter away without being thanked by multiple people for your efforts. And I think that ought to be in the record as well. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this matter? Yes.
Hi, my name is Nora Marie. I'm a resident of Walla Walla County. I also work locally in Walla Walla, and I would just like to put on the record my experiences from the farmer's market, having tourists sit there and just be terrified and ask me if they're safe. From watching people walking by move their children to the other side of the road because they don't want them seeing that kind of messaging. I read through all of the affidavits, all the statements, and it is frankly disgusting that we've allowed this to go on so long. I'm just going to put that out there. This is hurting our town. And I understand that there's a free speech element here. I think that this ordinance is the appropriately fair way to go about it. And I do have some concerns about how it will be actually handled. Like what was mentioned, who will be enforcing this? How are we actually going to tell who is doing these chalk instances? For example, is a child who is, coloring a flower on the sidewalk, are they also going to be punished and fined for just being a kid? I have those types of questions. I think it's fair overall, but I do think I want to see more detail on how this plan will be carried out. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to comment on this matter?